The NIL coach, Aisha Foy. Has NIL corrupted the college game or has it exposed what's already been there?
Um, I don't know if it's done either of those things. You gotta be more specific about that question.
You look online and hear people talk about the game, and it's like, oh, it's made it to where it's about the pros and it's like they're about the money now versus the integrity of playing for the game and playing for the school and the heart you have for that. Or you might hear the other part of it where they're right. They should have been getting this money this whole time and they see no problems with it at all. Do you think that either side of that is very true? Like, where do you stand as far as that conversation goes?
I think every athlete is different. I think every school is different. Um, being a student athlete, being a football player in the SEC is very different than being a mid-major basketball player. So the blanket statements throw things off and it puts out bad narratives. Obviously, football, generates a lot of revenue for student athletes and, coaches make all this money. Everybody makes money except for the players. So, I think it's good that the door has opened as far as how it's regulated and things like that. Those things can be those things are things to look at and stuff like that. But as far as the integrity of the game, like if somebody wasn't serious about their sport, then they wouldn't be playing or they definitely wouldn't be able to perform at a high level. So I think those blanket statements are bad narratives. But it could be that for specific situations. But I don't think it's a blanket statement around what NIL has done good or bad.
Yeah, I think it really turned up to where a little bit last year, but it's even more this year to where it feels like a free agency. Like a lot of players are hitting the portal, and you hear where it's about, oh, she's leaving because she wants more money, or he's trying to transfer to this bigger school because he wants more money. And on one hand, I feel you. Like, man, if you got a bag, someone to give it to you, do your thing. Like, I have no issue with that. But the fan in me is like, man, I wish we could still see the players staying for 3 or 4 years, and you have that community being built up, and you see the player coming as a freshman, they leaving as a junior or a senior. It's like, man, I remember when she was 17, 18, she couldn't even dribble good with her left hand. She looking scared out of her shoes to go hoop. Then you see her now as a senior, she the best player in the country, and so on and so forth. So on one hand, I get it to where, man, I wish they could stay. But on the other hand, this kind of what the game has come to. So I try to always be pro player in these situations because they've been getting a short end of the stick for so many years. Now they can get their own. I have no issue with them. But like you said too, it's mainly the D1 players that are getting the biggest end of it. Like the P4 schools are getting the biggest bag, so they'll be get the players the more. When you talk to the mid majors, it's like, man, they're not getting the same amount of money, if at all. And so I agree with you on that standpoint. But do you feel that when you look at each level and each layer, they're being treated the same way by the companies in terms of, I have this girl, she's going to Georgia, and I have this girl, she's going to a mid-major, girl that's going to a D2. Do you think all of them are getting treated fairly as far as where they are and how they are as a player?
Mm, I mean, nobody gets treated the same. That's the beauty of NIL. Like your name, image, and likeness means is different than somebody else's name, image, and likeness. So I don't think anybody gets treated the same. And it could also be reversed. It could be a student athlete, for example, Raekwon Smith, who was a mid-major football player. He transferred D2, King of NIL, and he may not have been making millions in collective dollars, but as far as a brand, he was treated like royalty, the King of NIL. It depends on what that student athlete does to promote themselves, put themselves out there, and how they value themselves. So it's the beauty of NIL is that it's not one size fits all. It's not a blanket statement. It's not just student athletes anymore. These students are brands, and everybody don't get treated the same. So it's
I
hard
think that's the
to
beauty of the
it's hard to
sport.
make a generic statement because, like I said, like if I'm a like I played mid major, right? But if I knew NIL was the way it was, or if, let's say I have a daughter or a client that's a mid major player, right? They can build their brand, they can build their audience. Let's say they build their audience and they have 10,000, 30,000 followers, they can carry and conduct themselves the same way somebody that plays that's a top player at a um, SEC or ACC school. So it's really about your personal brand and the value that you add and the people that support you. There's also, student athletes that play high major, women's basketball players, and specifically that their brand is very weak. They're nobodies. You know what I'm saying? So, as far as brand celebrity goes, so it's again, it's not a one size fits all. It's very individualized, and you can create whatever brand that you desire to create. Now, is it easier if you are a Power Five student athlete? Possibly, or a Power Five recruit, possibly because you are going to be supported by a bigger group of people. However, there are more student athletes that play Power Five that are treated just like everybody else, and as far as their brand, especially dealing with companies, because companies really don't care that you play sports. Companies care about how many eyeballs can you get on their product.
So you mentioned personal brand. How do you define brand? Because I hear a lot of people bring up brand. They talk about you got to build your brand. I've heard terms of it, and it's like, oh, you have to have the color, you have to have a logo, you have to have this about yourself. And other people explain it a different way. But how do you define what personal brand is?
Now, I like that you say that. I mean, it's a lot of different things to it. So you talked about color, right? So in a lot of my interviews, I'm wearing orange, and a lot of my videos, I'm wearing orange, right? And the reason why I wear orange is one, supporting the WNBA. The cover of my book is orange, and I want people to be able to easily identify me, when I'm in public and things like that. So that plays a part in it. However, my brand is education, supporting women's basketball players, supporting girls basketball players, being an inspiration and things like that. So there are layers to it. But as far as student athlete branding, I think it's, how do you inspire people, right? First, as an athlete, the first thing you do is entertain people, right? With your sport, right? So how do you entertain people? As far as your personal brand is like, what do people think about when they hear your name? Right? It's certain student athletes, they can play the same sport, they can play the same position, they can play it the exact same way, and you'll think about something different when you hear their name because as a person they stand for different things, right? So Michael Jordan and LeBron James they're both, one and two or three and four, whatever the case may be. They're two completely different people, right? When you think about LeBron James, you think about advocacy, you think about being a father, you think about giving back. When you think about Michael Jordan, you think about business, Nike, the Jordan brand. You know what I'm saying? Who you are as a person and what you want to represent, that is how you determine, that's how you get started with kind of figuring out your brand and how you want to go about yourself. So, think about what do you want people to think about when people hear your name, and then, beyond that, what are you doing to make sure that you're building an influence, to have that brand, to have that strong brand recognition and things like that.
Hmm. I think one thing with brand that you see, because everybody's trying to do their branding thing, and there's the personal brand of who they are as a person, and then there's the athlete or the business side of them. When you're coaching them, do you try to combine those two and put that on display, or do you kind of separate it from them? How do you kind of coach the personal brand versus the business brand or the athlete brand?
Yeah, I mean, I combine them to begin with because a lot of student athletes that I work with um, are 14, 15, 16, 17, you know, pretty much starting at 13 all the way up through maybe a college senior. So, and I really ask them, right? So I don't project anything on them. I ask them, what do you want to be known for? And if you want to be known for being a business person, then we're gonna go that route. If you want to be known for being a great teammate and giving back, we're gonna go that route. So, when it comes to productizing yourself, that's kind of what you're talking about as far as the business side of it is, how do you want to be paid? What businesses do you want to be associated with? That all is determined by the way you answer the first questions, like what do you want to be known for? What are some things that you're interested in? Your personality, right? Some people's personality is part of their brand, right? So Flajay Johnson, her personality is part of her brand with a whole lot of other different things. Um, Gigi Banks, she's a 2026, so she's a sophomore, going to her junior year. Bright personality. Um, when I was working with Maid, and her game also displays her personality, right? So sometimes you look at student athletes and you already see like what do they bring to the table, what do they naturally display, and then you ask them like what do you want to display more of, and then kind of work with them accordingly to that. Like I was saying with Gigi Banks, like she's very entertaining on and off the court, which is why her personality and her presence is so powerful and strong, because you're always entertained being around her. You always feel good, feel inspired being around her on or off the court. And when I was working with Made Hoops, we would, film student athletes that that brought a lot of attention to our brand, right? And anytime Gigi was playing, we made sure that we had multiple cameras. You know what I'm saying? And it could be a player that they might they might lose the game, right? And it's also her mini or her protege Chloe Isom, same thing. We need cameras at that game, right? Because of the way they play, they entertain, right? Their personalities and things like that. And it could be people that say, "Oh, I'm better than that player. Why I'm not getting that attention?" Or you know what I'm saying? But it's like, well, maybe you're boring, or maybe like, what else do you bring to
Mm.
the table? And being fundamentally sound or having a solid game, like, or not being flashy, that doesn't mean that you can't build a personal brand, or that doesn't mean you can't get recognition. But people's attention goes where people's attention goes, and you as a brand, you can determine how do you want people's attention on you, right? So I think that is very much up to the person, and or up to that person's parents of how they want to market their student athlete.
Mm. Okay, let's get into it because I got to understand more about NIL stuff too. Because you getting me excited, my brain going so many different places. So before we start talking deals, we start trying to get to the money. What is like the preliminary or like the warm up, the introduction phase need to go through to understand NIL? Like, is it understanding what branding is and how they want to go? Is it marketing? What do players need to understand before we start talking deals and start talking money?
Yeah, I would say I like to give student athletes a overall understanding of what NIL is, right? Is your name, image, and likeness. And I also like to tell athletes like these are different ways that you can participate in NIL, right? So people think NIL is a dollar amount, but NIL is you have to participate in it, right? So, um, you know, like I'll let them know like these are ways that you can make money. You can make money by now. You can make money by signing with a school. I don't lead with that because that's determined based off of what that school wants to give you, right? And sometimes that's a specific amount of money. So there's a lot of different variables with that. So I don't really lead with that, but I let them know that is a way, and not to confuse that with true NIL. And true NIL is commercial NIL, like your actual personal brand, right? Um, so I like to ask them. So I tell them like, what brands do you want to be associated with? How do you see yourself as a brand? Because if or how do you want to see yourself? Because some athletes aren't there yet. So I say, how do you want to see yourself? What do you want people to think about? What's your why? What is your story? Right. So those are kind of the first conversations I have with student athletes. Like, who are you? Like, what is your name, image, and like what is it? You know what I'm saying? If somebody had your name with in a dictionary, what would it say? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is your name, image, and likeness? Or what do
Mm.
you want it to be? And then the next thing I talk to them about is like, how do you build influence? Because if you want to make money, you have to have influence. If you are this great person or you have all these great attributes and nobody knows about you, then you know it really doesn't matter, honestly. So I asked them like, how do you build influence? How do you how do you interact with people so they want to be around you? How do you give back giving back is a easy way to build influence and build your brand and things like that. So first is like the what, right? Like what do you want to market? And then it's like, okay, how are you going to market it? How are you going to storytell? How are you going to build influence? Because that's really the part right there. That's the biggest key in, in making money, right? Is how much influence do you have? And then the next thing I talked to them about is how do you productize yourself? So it's your brand, your influence, and then productizing yourself. Like what do you want to be associated with?
Mm. How much do you balance, like you said, what they want to be a part of? And there's some people it's all about the money. So it's like, just get me money and I'll make the rest work. But I always think about this was like maybe 15 years ago, maybe. LeBron had an interview and they was asking him, man, how you stay so healthy and what's your nutrition and workouts like? He was like, man, I work out, I sleep, proper nutrition, I stay away from McDonald's. I don't eat that junk food, right? But at the
Hmm.
time he was part of McDonald's. And then I don't remember if he just caught himself or they said, like, you sure you don't eat McDonald's? And he double back. And he was like, oh, yeah, yeah, I love McDonald's, da 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 da. And I think about that a lot in terms of people just do stuff to get a bag because, oh, it looks cool to be with Nike. It looks cool to be with iPhone or with Gatorade because of whatever reason they say. So, how do you balance that middle ground of like, okay, yeah, you want to get over here because it's cool to say I'm with them, but do you personally align with them or do you just want to chase that foot? How do you kind of balance that of what a player says, I want to get the bag, but that doesn't align with them?
Yeah, I mean, one, like how big is the bag with that deal, right? Because sometimes, well, lineman is who's going to pay us. But I love that you brought that up with the McDonald's situation, right? If a company that you've never heard of, right, come to you and they're like, we got $100,000 for you to promote our brand. I'm gonna learn about that company. I'm gonna figure out a reason why I want like that company, right? And I wouldn't lie, but like you would ask yourself, let's use the McDonald's example, right? I try not to eat McDonald's sometimes. I'm not gonna, promote McDonald's to my players or part of my sports nutrition regimen. However, I'm gonna say that's a fun meal, right? If I want a break, if I want a happy meal, or I can talk about my childhood. Everybody probably had McDonald's part of their childhood, right? So I say when I was a kid, I used to love going to McDonald's. I couldn't. Maybe I haven't had McDonald's in 20 years, but I'm gonna find a story. I could have had McDonald's one time. I'm gonna talk about that one time that I had McDonald's, how fun it was. You know what I'm saying? So like that's part of it too. Um, but when it comes to like small stuff or companies that are not established, it's just not worth it, right? Let's say it's a $500 deal, or well, everybody's bracket of money is different. But let's say it's a deal that's just not worth it, right? It's not worth the work. Then
Yeah.
just don't even worry about it, right? But if it's like a company that's an established company, an established brand, and then you can even use the fact that maybe I used to aspire to go um to the play in the McDonald All American game. I could have never had McDonald's a day in my life, but I wanted to play in the McDonald All American game. Or I could talk about the Ronald McDonald House and how McDonald's uses their brand to give back to kids. You know what I'm saying? So like it's different ways you can spin it, but you want to be authentic where you don't want to lie. But at the same time, if somebody paying you, you figure out a way to like that situation, you know. And again, it depends on how much money it is, because sometimes it's just not worth
I like you. I like the way you said that because that because I definitely would have been like McDonald's. No, let me think about it. Let me call you back because I don't do McDonald's, but I like the way you did that. You made some connection to it to where it makes sense for them because you don't want to give up that money if that means you changing your life. So I like the way you did that. Uh,
Yeah, and it is if it makes sense. Now I was just gonna say if it makes sense, right? Let's say you can't work with McDonald's and Burger King. Well, maybe you can, but maybe you choose maybe another category of food or fast food that you say, okay, well maybe I don't want to do McDonald's, but maybe I'll do Chick-fil-A. Let me call Chick-fil-A and see if they're willing to have me on. You know what I'm saying? I use that offer from McDonald's as leverage for another fast food restaurant that I actually like, or another food restaurant that I actually like. If that makes sense.
that. So would it be possible to do something like that where you get, say it's Adidas and Nike? Would it be possible to work with both of them? Have you had that?
No, I don't think you can work with Adidas and Nike. Normally, the company have in their clause that like an exclusivity clause, and it can vary, right? So let's say I do a Adidas ambassadorship, and it's maybe I'm not an Adidas athlete, but they're paying me $2,000 to promote, a new pair of shoes that's coming out, right? Maybe the exclusivity clause may last 3 months, or let's say the deal is 3 months long. I can't promote another company that's in that category within 6 months. So it all depends. Um, so yeah, so it depends on what the contract says and what makes sense for you. You know.
So we've been talking a lot about more player to business money, and not too long ago I was talking to a coach, and he moved up to the D1 level, and he was telling me about how there are two separate bags players can get. So you get money from the school per se, and then you get your NIL money. Can you explain what the differences between those two are and how that kind of works for them?
Yeah. So kind of what we're talking about is called true NIL. So that is business to person, right? Juju Watkins with State Farm. Um, Jada Williams with Spalding, or Walmart. So that's business to person, personal brand to business, and then you have collective NIL, and all of these things are changing now with the house settlement. It'll still be collectives and things like that, but it may look a little bit different. But that's basically a school's trying to buy your talent, and that can really be considered person to business too, because with the revenue share contracts, what you're signing is an NIL deal with the school. I had the opportunity to look over or to look at a NIL, a revenue sharing contract, and it's basically an NIL deal with the school, which makes sense because that is how the school is benefiting off of you. Is that they have TV contracts and you are the one that's playing on TV. You know what I'm saying? Um, so it really is an NIL deal. When you would sign your national letter of intent, you basically sign your NIL rights over to the school, and then you couldn't benefit at all anymore from it. But now the school's actually going to pay you for your NIL, right? So, and that's kind of what a collective deal is as well. Is like paying you to play, but that's a legal way to pay for play. Um, when you get a collective check, that's basically how much can you impact the team, how many wins can you get us, how successful is our program going to be if you come play with us. And athletes are making a lot of money through collective contracts and collective deal. That's kind of what I call it. You got real commercial NIL deal, then you got collective NIL, and that's basically getting paid to go to school.
Let's talk about that settlement. Like, can you explain what the whole talk around that was? Like, what was the settlement about, and what happened after from it? Because I saw it and I didn't fully understand everything. I was like, I got an interview coming up, so I'm gonna just like see what she has to say about it because this a lane. So, can you explain that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not an attorney. There are a lot of different. You can YouTube Christy Dosh and find that information from a legal perspective. But I mean, really simple way to put it is schools can pay student athletes directly, right? It's legal, right? That doesn't mean that everybody will. The schools have to opt in to do it, um, and there's a cap in it, right? So the good thing about the house settlement is that it makes a salary cap, quote unquote, and schools can pay up to $20 million to, but that's distributed between all student athletes. So an important thing to know is that just because a school is paying can pay student athletes, that does not mean that you will get paid by the school. Because you got to think $20 million is not a lot of money when you have 400 student athletes, and you got to pay the quarterback want 2 million, and the point guard or the center want 2-3 million. You know what I'm saying? Like it's 15 players on the men's basketball team. It's 15 players on the women's basketball team. Is what's 85 or it's 85 or however many um, football players, right? So that 20 million is gonna go by really, really quick. And so just because you can get paid, that doesn't mean that you will get paid. But it's legal to do that. And it starts they'll start rolling it out July 1. And yeah, so it's just basically kind of what we talked about earlier is that you can sign an NIL deal with the school. So the school can now pay you for your NIL rights.
I see that being tricky because, of course, like down the South, football is king, and you go to certain schools on the West Coast, all about basketball. And so, like Stanford, they have pretty much every sport they have going crazy. So how do you see them like divvying up the money, because that can be an issue of like, oh, we might just not fund this team. We might just end up canceling this team to get more money to the football team, or we might cut out this program over here to get more money over here to get this player. So that can be tricky, man. Like, do you see that being a big issue, or like, what do you see from that?
I mean, it's an issue for the people that's doing it. It's not an issue, for you or me. You know what I'm saying? Like it ain't an issue for everybody. Like every situation is different. You know what I'm saying? So like with the AD and the head basketball coach and the track coach, where they butt heads and trying to figure this out, yeah, it's gonna be a problem. All those issues that you have just said, all those things will be issues. All those things will be things that have that those people have to work with. Um, but at the same time, as a recruit, I go to the best situation that makes sense for me. So, like I said, just because athletes can get paid by the school, that doesn't mean that they will get paid by the school, right? So, going back to the things that we were talking about earlier is like, this is what I help student athletes do is like, how can you maximize your brand potential so that you can put yourself in position to to make money in ways, right? And you cannot get paid by the school, but you can like NIL doesn't go away. I'm gonna say this. So revenue sharing and NIL, like keep those separate, right? Keep those separate. And I can have a multi-million dollar NIL, a multi-million dollar NIL brand and not get paid anything by a collective. So that's like an Angel Reese situation. She made over $1 million in NIL deals, but I don't know how much she was getting paid by the collective, right? There are student athletes that have made money in NIL but didn't make anything in collective, or they may have made a couple $1,000s a month in collective money. So like it is important to understand the difference, and you know when you're determining like, okay, how do I want to promote myself, or how am I going to go about this? Understand like these are different categories, right?
Mm.
Again, I could be making, like let's say Juju Watkins, for example, right? I'm pretty sure if you don't, no collective money, no revenue sharing, she's at a couple mil with her NIL, with her real commercial NIL deals, right? So again, and how much money you can make in true NIL is determined by you, is determined by how popular you are, is determined how much do you build your brand, how much influence do you have. And if you have a lot of influence, you can make a lot of money in NIL, true NIL.
Are teams getting NIL deals too, or is it just the players? Like, have you seen that happen?
Yeah, teams can get NIL deals. I mean, if I'm a head coach, I can call up, the pizza spot and say, hey, these are my players. Like, I'm looking for opportunity for a team deal, because especially mid majors that don't have a lot of collective money, you have to pull opportunity from like brand partnerships, right? So I can, let's say I'm a mid major coach and I have no collective budget. I'm gonna try and get 10,000 from the pizza shop up the street. I'm gonna try and get 20,000 from the bank. I'm gonna try and get, any business that's within an hour away from my university. I'm gonna call and see what they are they interested in working with my team. You know what I'm saying? So those are possibilities as well where we can make a team deal. And team deals, and especially with women's basketball and even like volleyball or team sports where it's like 10 to 15 players, those are really beneficial because you get 15 different brand ambassadors, and it may cost you $15,000. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of marketing for your company by cutting one check. You know what I'm saying? And then, or you can say, I want more from a certain player because they got more followers. But yeah, team deals do happen, but it has to be an intention based off the person, the school, not the school, but the coach have to be intentional about wanting to have that team deal. So yeah, it happens.
Hmm.
I actually facilitated one um, back when I was on the staff.
Okay, that's very insightful because we think about NIL, we just think about the player getting money. I was thinking about because I heard about the collective deal and how schools get money to players. So I was wondering, did NIL just go to players, or could schools get it done too? And it's a lot of
I
money to be
wouldn't
made
say
out here.
schools can get it done. I wouldn't say that. I would say teams can very individually, and I would say sometimes collectives do NIL deals on the behalf of a program. And then also Learfield Sports, which is Learfield basically owns the rights of a lot of like the branding around the school. So they own those rights, right? So Learfield can go facilitate a deal with some of their partners, and some of it can go to the team or the actual players. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of different ways, like, and that's why when people have blanket statements around what NIL is, that's very misleading because every situation is different. Every school is different. Every coach is different. Every player is different. You know the way to go about it. And it's
Go back to what you were saying.
I don't think it's a common thing. Huh?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it's super common for team deals, but if I'm a mid-major coach with no collective budget, that would be my bread and butter.
Go back to what you were saying about player deciding the school and the school looking at them saying how much money they can bring in. How do you kind of qualify what a player's worth and kind of evaluate that? Because you look at Juju, you know she's bringing in money because of the fame she had from high school. She was a big name. I think the number one in her class. So how do you kind of qualify what a player's worth and evaluate that is?
Yeah, so I based off the conversations and things that I've had with coaches they do it based off of the impact of the player on the court, right? So if I know this player is going to help me win games, and sometimes coaches are desperate and they just need to fill the roster, so they'll just pay somebody that shouldn't get paid. They'll pay them a lot of money just because they're desperate, and I'm just calling it what it is. And nothing about their brand or nothing about even their game is worth that amount of money. So right now, the way that a lot of these collective deals are being done are based solely off of the impact of the roster, or if we need players. Um, so that's how collective deals are getting done. You know, but that's not how I would evaluate a situation. Like when I was recruiting director at Kentucky, there wasn't any money or there wasn't any pay necessarily, but it was very important that players help promote the program, right? So I may have somebody higher on my evaluation scale as a recruiter because they have a lot of influence, right? And I can say, fans are going to like this person a lot more, which means that we will sell more tickets, right? That means that our games will be more entertaining so that we'll get more recruits, right? So, like I said, a GG Banks, for example, I think Gigi Banks and that's my personal opinion because I like flashy guards and I like being entertained and I don't like, and that doesn't mean I don't like non-flashy guards, but I gravitate to people that has some sort of entertainment. One, because we got to sell tickets, right? But anyway, like a Gigi Banks will be worth a lot in my evaluation, and she has a lot of followers too. So if she comes on a visit and if she's promoting our brand, that's good for recruiting because guess what? There are a lot of girls looking up to her, right? So if Gigi goes to X school, or if Juju Watkins, right? What Juju Watkins has done for USC recruiting by itself has been a lot because a lot of people weren't checking for USC before, and that's just the truth. Now USC has become a national powerhouse in recruiting. They signed another number one recruit. You know what I'm saying? Like you got two number one recruits back to not back to back, but within a 3 year span because one person said yes, right? So that's a lot of value to your school, to your roster, to your program. Um, so personally, I determine value based off impact too on the court because you got to win games, but also based off of how is this going to help us recruit more kids. Um, and if that person can help us recruit more kids, I'm gonna see them as more valuable than someone that can maybe do the same exact thing, right? But maybe they don't even have a social media account. You know what I'm saying? Like if you don't even have a social media account at all, and you can be the best player, you know what I'm saying? Now there are levels to it as well. This player can help us win a national championship, help us get to an NCAA tournament, or help us win games in the NCAA tournament. Then obviously, I don't care what type of social media that they have. We need them because they're going to help us, move the ball forward. As far as our record goes, but at the same time, somebody with uh already coming in with brand power, right, or influence is going to help us even more because they're going to help us recruit more kids. They're going to help us get more fans in the stands, and that's valuable to the program with or without NIL. That's valuable to the program because we got wins and then recruiting. Those are the main two important things in as far as program goes.
I feel like that's really tricky because, of course, it's going to go by program. But you have a kid that can hoop, but they have no social media, like you said. So it's going to be tough to kind of sell that to the fans. And you don't know her game. Like she can give you post play, give you 20 and 10, winning basketball, but average fan don't want to see that. Like it's not like Tim Duncan, man. Like yeah, you winning 5 championships, but like come on, bro. Like I'd much rather
Yeah,
go watch Zion go dunk on everybody, even though we losing. Kind of a tough spot to be in as a coach to be like, man, I get this big that can give me 20 and 10 and we're winning, or do I get this big that has the social media, they have the fan following, the influence that we're looking for? They're not the biggest winner. And of course that comes on what you already have with the team, but I feel like that can get like some tough decision making has to be said there. But I'm not in
yeah.
that seat,
So
you did that. So that's tough.
like you said, it's a team, right? So one person isn't going to determine everything. So we can have three people with a good social media following. I mean, you don't need everybody with a social media following. You actually don't need your whole team with strong personal brands because they're going to clash. So
Mm.
I wouldn't say that it. Yeah, like basketball is not an individual sport. You got to fit within a roster too. So if you don't care about social media, you don't care about none of that. You just want to get your 20 and 10. You still got a spot on the team. So that ain't, and you're still probably gonna get paid a lot in collective money because you're valuable to the success of the program. So everybody got their own thing, right? So, and again, it is a place for anybody that is a good player, regardless of their social media presence. But that sometimes when you look at a full roster, you're looking at okay, who we're going to recruit. That could factor in, but at the same time, it's not going to factor in every. I was giving you my personal,
Yeah, yeah.
preferences, as far as guard play, but there are plenty of coaches out there that don't care about that, and they'll pay more for somebody that is just going to be a winner. So again, like, and you also got a budget too, so there's space for everybody.
Heard you mention that you work with as young as 14-year-olds. How early is too early to start focusing on NIL and trying to build it? Like, is it to a point where it's like, all right, bro, like you're doing too much, chill out, like just go hoop, or is it like, okay, let's build the brand now? Like, how do you kind of gauge what's too early to start working on the personal brand?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's never too early, so let's go ahead and get that. out the way now. It's never too early. I don't think anybody should focus on NIL or focus on. I don't think a kid. It also it depends. Like it depends. Um, but I don't say like it's you should focus on it. It should just be part of it, right? I got school, I got basketball, and I got my brand. And how you decide how much you're gonna do, that's up to the kid. Like let's say the kid loves being on camera, like that's their hobby. They love shooting YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Like they could have very well been an actor or an actress. You know what I'm saying? If that's something that is interesting to them, I'm gonna say like yeah, like build your brand as much as possible. So again, it's different for everybody, but I would say the earlier you start, the better you'll be at it. The earlier you start, the deeper your support will be. So I mean, it's never too early. The kids and the parents got to determine what they're gonna do with their time.
Right, so now I've done what you said. I decided the brands I want to work with. I've decided, what I want my personality and my brand to be. What's next? So now I'm trying to get the bag, get the money, and let's go like a high school freshman. 14, 15 years old, trying to get my NIL deal. I know the companies I want to work with. What do I do now to start getting the money?
Yeah, so that next step will be productizing yourself, and a process in that is building your pitch. So now we have all those things that you just said. Now let's make a pitch, and a pitch can be a PDF document with everything about you, what you bring to the table. We telling our story, making sure we got a social media plan with that. We're building our following, things like that. But like we'll build our pitch and we just pick up the phone and we call Chanelos up the street. We call Planet Fitness. It's commercial NIL is really that simple. People make it so um, you know, not bigger than what it is, but like very like more complicated than what it is. Like I work with a student athlete and I don't even work with her. Her mom just always asking me questions and I answer questions and she like, what do I say to this company? What do I say to this company? And she at least got 20 NIL deals. And like she's not the highest recruited player at all. She's a very, and I don't want to put limits on anybody, but like a very just average player. Um, like nobody probably would know her name outside of her state. And she got rolling up on 20 NIL deals. Like her mom always hitting me like, hey, we got this opportunity. Like call the company. Like so I'm gonna put it in order for you. So you build your pitch. You got your pitch, you know what you're gonna say now. Your introduction to companies, right? Hello, my name is so and so. I got this many followers. I'm doing this. I got these good things. These are my qualities about myself. Now you got productizing yourself. Ask you what products do you want to work? What companies do you want to work with? So I'm gonna take out my phone in my notes section, or I'm gonna take out a piece of paper and I'm gonna write down everything that I use on a day to day basis. So if I'm a student athlete, I'm gonna ask my mom like, mom, like where do I spend most of your money? Right? What clothes do I like? What brands do I like to shop at? You know, and then also, so I got my list of stores, I got my list of brands that I'm gonna go to, and then the next thing I'm gonna do, and I'm being really practical here. I'm gonna get in my car. I'm gonna drive around the city and I'm gonna look at the shopping centers. And I'm gonna say, okay, there's a Chick-fil-A, there's a Planet Fitness, there's a whatever, there's a Kava, there's the movie theater, right? I like kids, I'm gonna entertain kids, so maybe I can have a day where everybody meets, Gigi Banks at the movies. And I use Gigi Banks because she's already popular. And I guarantee you, if she said, hey, come watch this movie with me at Regal at 7 p.m. on Friday, I bet you 50 kids show up and they'll pay $50 to go sit in the movie theater with her. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, going back to the steps, I'm driving around the city and I'm looking at what opportunities are in the city or what businesses are in the city. I'm going to look at banks. Do I have braces? If I had braces when I was 12, who was my orthodontist? I'm gonna call my orthodontist. If I had an injury and I had to do rehab, I'm gonna call the physical therapist that did my rehab and say, hey, I'm a student athlete. I'm starting to get recruited. I got this many followers. Are you interested in a partnership? I'm going to call the attorneys. I'm going to call every business in the city and I'm going to ask them, do they want to work with my kid and see what happens, right? Now, if the kid is like really, really popular, it may be time to get an agent or I may be interested in doing some national brands. But if I'm, and this is what I mean by like your personal brand or your NIL journey is determined by you, is because you can be a very local average person, and if you're an athlete, you're not average anyway. You have influence. So if you have a little bit of influence, you have a little bit of personality, you can go out and get yourself some NIL deals if you choose to do so. Right. So that's kind of where I would start. If I'm a, and this is exactly what an agent will do. Even if it's a big time agent, what the agent is doing, they're looking at their list of companies, they're putting together a profile sheet for their clients, and they're calling the companies and saying, do you want to work with so and so? That's the same thing that Juju Watkins' agent is doing. That's the same thing that Flajay Johnson's momager is doing. You know, just that's how you do it. You know what I'm saying? So, and athletes do it themselves as well, right? You'll be surprised. A lot of athletes, especially Olympic sport athletes, like they handle their own NIL. They got a copy and paste message, and they send it to all the companies that they can find the contact information for. So, um, as far as commercial NIL, that's how it goes. And just the more popular you are, the more money you can make, or maybe it's a national deal instead of a local deal, but it's all the same thing.
So you mentioned agents. How do you go about finding an agent? How do you kind of to them through and say, hey, this is a good agent versus a bad agent? How do you kind of go through the process of picking an agent out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a I would say that's a complicated process. I mean, obviously there are the agencies that are already known and popular, or not popular, but known and solidified. Um, like Clutch or CAA or Priority Sports and things like that. But sometimes those agents may not be the best fit for you. So I would say like simply just have a conversation with some. If an agent is interested in working with you, have a conversation with them, hear their pitch, um, ask them, do they have a plan? Like, what's your plan to help me be promoted? Um, how much time are you going to spend helping me get NIL opportunities? And I would just ask them about their recent success or any case studies they had with who they work with. So the easiest way to figure out if an agent is good is look at what their clients, the what do their clients have. Um, so that's a way. And then sometimes an agent can be your parent, an agent can be your uncle that is very business savvy, that's willing to invest a couple hours a week in reaching out to companies and figuring it out for you. So it depends. As long as it's somebody that you trust them, they're not gonna steal, your stuff. They're competent, right? You would want to know work with somebody that's competent in different areas, and they're willing to put work in to help you, to promote you. Um, I do think it's, especially with the collective situation, collective makes agents makes choosing an agent like kind of tricky, right? Because let's say you get a $200,000 collective deal, and the coach don't even care about NIL. They just know you're a good player. They're willing to, come $200,000 out of your collective, and it had nothing to do with your agent or promoting them. Your agent could possibly get a cut of that. So, I think, and I think this is important. Like parents need to be educated. Even if a parent eventually their kid signs with an agent, like the parent need to understand, how this works and how the agents get paid and stuff like that. Because and sometimes that's okay. Like sometimes, like if you're an agent for a student athlete, that's a lot of work and you may not make that much money. So sometimes the collective, what you make in the collective, offsets the work that it has taken to promote you, and it's fair, right? I think it depends, right? And a lot of these questions, the answers to these questions that are that it depends. But yeah, just have conversations with people. Like, go with your gut. Don't let somebody force you into making a quick decision. Ask questions. Ask a lot of questions, um, and then make sure that person has a plan for you specifically.
I've had some players that I train get some type of deal done to where they get signed with the company and they get some merch done. Basically, it's around them and their brand. I've had one player had a pretty cool experience. It wasn't bad. Another player was like, basically was a scam. They got ripped off. How do you kind of deal with that when you have companies that are doing stuff for college players and some of them, it's like how you kind of filter through what the companies do too? Because you don't know. They may have a lot of followers and they see all you see these names and face like, okay, they must be good. But how do you kind of really tell and look through the smoking, and tricks that they play to say, hey, this is a credible company versus this is when it's kind of a scam.
Yeah. So, are you saying that your two players did a deal with the same company and one had a good experience and one said it was a scam? Like with the same
Different
company?
companies, different ones.
Oh, different companies. Oh, okay. So I mean, like you just got to do your homework on the brand, right? Like, yeah, like is it a place that you shop at? Like, what products do they? Who's the CEO? You know what I'm saying? Like what goes into the deal? You just do your due diligence, like with any other decision in life. Ask questions, and it could just not be worth it. Like just because something says NIL doesn't mean I should do it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
What do I need to do and what am I gonna get? You know
mm.
what I'm saying? So finding out if a company is a credible company, that's an easy thing to do. Like that's a Google search. You make it ask ChatGPT, right? Like that's a very simple thing to not get scammed out of a company, right? Um, and sometimes, again, like you just don't have to say yes just because something somebody said come do a deal. What was it about the deal or the situation that he thought it was a scam?
Exactly what she said, but it was something along the line. It was like a t-shirt company, something like that. Um, and she didn't like it because I don't remember what she said, man. It's like a year ago I had this conversation. But she said it just didn't work out for her and it was kind of just scamming her to where she paid all this money up front to get stuff done and she basically got pennies back compared to what she paid.
Okay, I'm glad we went deeper into this. No student athlete
Mm,
should ever be paying for anything, paying a company for anything. So as soon as
mm.
somebody asks you for money, even if it's for shipping, run, 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 run. So that's a signal for a scam. A business should never be asking you for money. Um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much the biggest red flag right there. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because
Mm.
I wouldn't have thought you know to say that as a red flag. But yes, no, you should never be paying a company anything.
I wish you knew that beforehand because that would have helped her out. But I feel like it's just tricky because there's so many. Like I scroll through Instagram, you see so many different businesses pop up about, hey, we can do this for you and we can do that for you, and I send them little stuff here and they're like, hey, try to see if this work out for you. So I'm glad you said like that's probably like the number one red flag you'll say. Like if I had to pay money, number one, run away.
Never pay anything, and then two, like don't sign anything. Like read the fine print. Like understand what you're getting from, like what you're getting out of the situation. And sometimes something isn't a scam, but they playing you, right? So it was a situation. I was looking over a contract um for a player, and they were gonna pay her, but they was asking her to do a whole lot. I'm like, they want you to be an employee. Like this is a job, right? So wasn't necessarily a scam, no, but it was like it was a ripoff. Because if you use my NIL, like I bring to the table as far well the specific player that I'm talking about. She's really popular. You having my name on something is worth the payment, right? So if you got me working basically, and I don't want to say
Yeah.
specifically what they was asking her to do, but like basically, I'm like, this is a marketing internship they're trying to have you do. Like anybody could do this, and the company would benefit from it. and they don't even have to be a popular person because they're asking you to work, asking you to be their marketing worker, basically.
Mhm.
And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was just a lot of work for a little bit of money. But sometimes that could be beneficial, right? Sometimes if I want to work for a company, let's say it's a company that I want to work for, I say, is Nike asking me to do this? I may do it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It just look at and get an attorney, right? I should have said that a long time ago, but like get an attorney, and if it's not big enough or you don't think you're big enough to get an attorney, but just look at what the contract is saying. What are they asking you to do, and what are you getting from it?
Mhm.
Like that. That's really and I'm not trying to minimize how important it is, but like sometimes it's just
Mhm.
like read it, like read, you know,
Yeah.
and ask questions too. Like ask questions. Pick up the phone. Like anytime somebody send me a contract, and sometimes that's just my personality. I'd be like, can we call this company? Like, can we call this person that's asking you like, and we can talk through some things. But yeah, what are you getting,
Mhm.
and what are they asking you to do for what? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, but you shouldn't be paying any company to promote them. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're buying a product, like if you're buying a service, but that's not an NIL deal. That's you buying a service.
Mhm. Mhm. So I've heard you say that you can pretty much not get any player, but any situation you can get a player a deal. So we're going to kind of put this to a test and see what would your coaching skills look like for different type of players. All right.
Okay.
So let's say you have the Page Buckets, like you got probably the number one point guard in the country last year. She's in center in front of you. What's the layout you're going to have for her? How are you coaching Paige to get her NIL money?
Yes. You know, Paige is already a brand. So I'm gonna go based off of who she is right now. I would encourage. Well, Paige is already doing a really really great job. Like she's hitting. She's a really good player. So your categories is entertainment, right? So as an athlete, good player, she has a fan base based off her game, right? She has an
Mhm.
influence based off her game. All right. So the next category is entertainment, right? So and inspiring people. So she gets people in the inspiring category as well, right? So she inspires people. She advocates. Um, she people can tell her heart, right? Um, one thing I would ask Paige is I would say, I'll ask her like what products do she want to kind of get into, right? So she was signed with Nike when she was in college. I don't know if that carried over. I can't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure, but I'm drawing a blank right now. But outside of that, like, when she dresses up, like when she has fashion stuff, she looks really nice, right? In her dress up clothing and things like that. So I'll ask her, what other industries do you want to get into? Because you have this infinity of a fan base, so it's other avenues that you can get into. What investments do you want to make? What equity do you want in these companies? Because you can come on as um, an advisor for a company, and they can pay you in equity, and they also can pay you a salary too. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It's like, okay, how can you use this infinity of a fan base of a brand to think more long term? And I'm pretty sure that her family and her agent is already doing that for her. Um, but maybe even camps, right? So when you are a player, some players can get some players still have development to do, right? Some players are already that, right? And that's not to say that she doesn't have any more development to do, but at the same time, she's kind of reached the pinnacle, right? She already know she's been compared to Diana Taurasi since
True.
she was in sixth grade, right? So when you become that, you want to capitalize off the basketball market, right? So can you do camps, right? Like Brianna Stewart have done the camp, right?
Mm,
And not a like a you can do a camp for influence, kind of what like Kelsey Plum has done with her dog mentality camp. But you can build a basketball business based off your name. So you can have Paige Becker's camps in every city. You can have somebody run it,
mm,
and you can show up and you can leave. You know what I'm saying? So how can you build this infinity about yourself in different businesses, right? So in the basketball business, can you have a shooting machine? Can you
mm,
have a specific basketball, which I'm pretty sure like Caitlin Clark got Wilson and things like that, but like can
mm.
you have a basketball, or can you get equity in a basketball company, right? So again, at that point, you productize yourself. How many products can come out of my personal brand, or experiences? So one thing, these student athletes, they're tapping into it, like being invited to things. But I feel like student athletes can tap into it a little bit more on the local level of like creating experiences, right? So this is getting a little. I'm very nerdy about this, and I hate to even bring this up, but it's a good business principle. But like club promoters or people that show up at clubs for an hour and they filled up the club, and the person that was on the flyer may come for a second, right? Like you're in the appearance business, right? So like how
Mm.
can you make more money or create more experiences based off your appearance, right? So I would kind of brainstorm about, and I know they're busy, like they're like, damn, I don't want to go travel anymore. But sometimes you can start duplicating yourself. It could be a Paige Becker's camp and you never even show up. You know what I'm saying? It could just be it could be branded based off your personal brand, right? So how can you expand your name for more infinity?
Yeah, I think the thing that's special about her is that she's almost like the perfect like image of what you want NIL to be like. You want to have someone who already has the game. She has the personality. She's well spoken. She knows how to speak and conduct herself in interviews. She has the personality to go out and do brand deals. Like she's almost perfect. Like honestly, like from the time we saw her at UConn, even a little bit in high school, it's like, bro, what can she not do? Like she's beloved by everybody. So, uh, man, like I know you think you like the business brain. Like I really like how you thought about that, like making herself be a business like that. Because I ain't thinking about that. I'm thinking like brand deals and stuff. Like your brain is going, all right, we at level 6. Can we get to 8 with you? Okay, eight's a little too much. Can we go to 7? All right, cool. Let's work at 7. Okay, you want to go to a 10? Let's push it to a 10. I like the way you're thinking. So I'm excited to see how
Thank
the
you.
rest of this goes. I like that. I like that. But next, let's go Miss Rakia Jackson. Okay, she's not as out there as Paige, but she definitely has a lot to her. So how would you coach Rakia up?
Yeah, I would coach Rakia up in several ways. Actually, I think Rakia has a strong brand and strong presence. I feel like her brand could be expanded a lot more. Um, and I've watched Rakia. So when I was at Kentucky, we was recruiting her and things like that. So I watched her followed her, and as she was 13, 14, whatever the case may be. And she has a wittiness about herself. She has a presence about herself. Really pretty girl, you know what I'm saying? Like always done up, right? I think her brand would be a lot stronger if she told her story a little bit more, right? So
Mm,
one thing that the way Angel Reese blew up is that she became relatable to a lot of people, right? So Rakia Jackson is kind of, as far as publicly, she's quiet, she's private, which is good because she gravitates to people that way. It's kind of she kind of mysterious, right? But in any student athlete that I coach, I ask them like, what is unique about your story? Because in any movie, in any character, there's something that you can relate to, right? So is it something unique about your personality? Like, how do you have this confidence about yourself, right? So
Mm,
maybe you create a product around confidence. Maybe you create a product around being, the ultimate woman, as an athlete. You know what I'm saying? But what is it about you that can kind of draw people into you? And that's one of the most difficult things um about building a brand, because you do have to be vulnerable. And if you just look at Rakia, her brand is no vulnerabilities and there's no way to poke it, which is good. Like, she has that presence and that mysteriousness about her. But when you do have that little piece of vulnerability, and that's why Paige kind of blow up, and that's why Paige is so much infinity about her, is because you can relate to Paige in a lot of different ways, right? Um, and Paige has had a lot of moments, public moments of vulnerability and caring about other people, and it kind of showing her
mm,
heart. So I would encourage Rakia to show her heart a little bit, and it doesn't have to be a lot, right? And this is how you
mm,
master brand building, is you can be a little vulnerable. You can say one thing about yourself and keep everything else private, right? And
mm,
you can tell the same story over and over and over. And as long as it's a good story, as long as it's crafted well, you know, when I was 5 years old, um, I got made fun of for being ugly. And I started wanting to be a beautiful woman. And I told myself I was going to be beautiful in any room that I walk in. That's a story. It shows a little bit of vulnerability. It's not that deep. Nobody can figure out your personal business or poke at you as an adult, but it's a story that maybe a lot of black girls can relate to, right? So now I got this story of how I became this confident, pretty woman that nobody can fool with. And now I have that story that can relate to a whole lot of other people. And now my brand can be amplified because I'm like, I like Rakia. She helped me with my
mm.
confidence. You know what I'm saying? So that's a the personal angle where you poke into, and that pushes your brand out a lot. So that's how I would help Rakia. I would encourage her to um tell her story, and then also do some type of beauty product, invest in some type of beauty product, and that let that be her thing. Like, how do you keep a beat face the whole game, get in the makeup business or something like that, or the hair business, something like that.
Yeah, because all the girls that I know that love Rakia, they fit like the pretty girl image, and they connect to that because it's not vulnerable, but you have that connection with her. And so
Hmm.
all of them, like from young to old, all of them fit that same type of uh I'll say prototype, but that image of being a pretty girl. So I feel like if she did that, that's that next level of like, oh, I can connect to her. I remember someone saying like you don't have to tell the whole story. You can just tell a page. Okay, that you feel more comfortable, give a chapter. Man, when I was 10, I went through this. I went through that and I went through that. It might just be this angle of, like you said, when I was in school I got bullied because I was ugly. But then you might give another part of it to where, and when I went home, my parents didn't reinforcing to me that I was beautiful. Or maybe they did. So like it's giving layers of that same thing. So I'm okay. I'm shut up because I want to get to the next one. All right.
Yeah, no, hold on. Let's stay there for a little bit, right? So that's
Okay.
really good, right? And so the how you expand your brand is getting in other, so you're not just a basketball player. I can relate to all black women who want to be
Mm,
pretty. So instead of me just being a WNBA player that pretty girls look up to, I'm a WNBA player that all black girls look up to, um, all black women relate to, because now I have my story of overcoming how I used to think I was ugly. Now I think I'm pretty,
mm,
or how I used to think I was ugly, and now everybody think I'm pretty. That part right there, that's how you get people to really rock with you, because you're not just a pretty girl that you just think you pretty and nobody can rock with you. Because if I only rock with pretty girls, how many other girls am I leaving out that I can empower? You know what I'm saying?
mm,
When I tell my story, how I used to think I was ugly, or how I may struggle, she may struggle with self doubt every day. You know what I'm saying? That could
Mm,
be something that she got to overcome every day. Now I'm getting more people in my corner, more people are rocking with me because I'm more relatable. I'm not just relatable for being a pretty girl. I'm relatable for being a girl that's had to overcome things to make me confident and comfortable in who I am. That now now instead of impacting 500,000 people, maybe you impact 10 million people. You know what I'm saying? Because I done told a little bit about more of my journey. I can relate to more people. You know what I'm saying?
mm. I like this. This is fun. This is so much fun for me. All right. This next one's very interesting because she doesn't have as much personality as she shares out there. She definitely does, but she's definitely more on the introverted side too. So, Aaliyah Boston, she's in front of you. How are you coaching her up?
um, so there are a lot of really, really good attributes about Aaliyah that should be admirable, but not promoted, right? And
Mm,
I think athletes miss out on selling their character, right? Because
mm,
um and I'm not saying Aaliyah Boston is perfect. Nobody is perfect. But when you think about
yeah.
like the a perfect um great teammate, bubbly personality, probably super coach, whatever the case may be, whatever you can ask for, she probably gives you. Like, where is that promoted, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I would have a conversation and really really dig into her personal attributes and say, okay, like come up with and we get into the intellectual property game, right? So like come up with a like the Aaliyah Boston avatar, and it's purpose, character, and community. I just made that up. Purpose, character, and
Mm-hmm.
community. That's the Aaliyah Boston way, right? And when I go talk to kids now, I'm gonna say, you be the Aaliyah Boston way, right? It's this, this, and this. And now I have something to look up to, like, okay, what would Aaliyah do if her coach was yelling at her? Or what would Aaliyah do if she was in a difficult situation? And now I'm selling attributes because those are admirable things that probably helped her get to where she is, right? But that goes into understanding your story and being able to pull things out of your story that can be duplicated or that should be promoted, but we don't promote those things, right? So that's what I would do. I would, go on like a give back tour, right? Because Aaliyah Boston is known for giving back and her heart and things like that. Like maybe I have 1 month out, not 1 month, but I'm gonna look at my calendar and see when can I go to different places, and I'm gonna go to as many cities as I can, and maybe I run a camp, but it's gonna be a camp targeted toward that formula that I just talked about. Like we're gonna talk about purpose, character, and giving back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so now again, my footprint is deeper, and it's not just me showing up saying, "Hey," taking pictures. You're gaining something from me, right? So, um, and seeing like how many cities can I impact. I'm gonna go to these cities and I'm gonna do either free camp or giveaway. It could be food. You can go into different categories. You don't always have to be a camp, but I can, how many cities can I impact and just show my heart, because Aaliyah Boston, her part of her brand is showing her heart, and her story and things like that. But I will figure out how can I impact more people and tell that story a little bit more.
Yeah, I think she's a definitely special one because when it comes to, I think she's a safe one because you don't have to worry about her off the court. You don't have to worry about her slipping up and saying stuff because she just carries herself that way. Like you said, she's not perfect, but in terms of a brand, that's what you want to look for because moms want the daughters to be like that. Daughters want to look up to be like her, and you can do so much with marketing that. So when you said start getting into the IP, and it's like, okay, you branded this, and I'm like, yeah, you cooking, man. So I'm loving this, bro. Like I'm a nerd for this business stuff too. So just hearing this, I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like I love hearing this. But I think sometimes like you said, it gets too pigeonholed in terms of what we can do. But you just making this be bloomed into a whole different flower that my brain was not processing because I'm not thinking about NIL like this. But the way you see it, I'm just like, oh man, this is fun. So, anything
Yeah.
else on AB before we get to the next one?
Um. Mm-mm. I would just say, kind of just comment on what you just said. So a lot of safe people, like you said, she's safe. A lot of safe people get overlooked as far as influence, right? And
Mm,
having a strong brand around your character or something that's good about you and really putting it out there, that's how you build your influence. So um you got to figure out the influence piece. And just because I don't have certain things that get me a lot of attention, i'm gonna I'm gonna be strategic about inserting myself into the market, in the way that I want to insert myself into the market, right? So
mhm,
and that's where people trick up because they're like, I'm not popular or I'm not flashy. Like, okay, but what are you? Let's figure out what you are, and let's package promote that, whatever you are, you know.
mm, mm. All right. So this next one, she is I really wanted to get her in because everybody else is kind of like the star, like the one. Like you think about this program, you think about this player, and she's arguably Alec mentioned like either the best player on the team or the conference or whatever. This next one, she wasn't that girl. She wasn't the one. She was one of the ones on this team. I'm speaking of Miss Kate Martin. She was a role player. She was kind of cool and popular, and even now she can like a little hate on social media and stuff. So I'm interested to see on how you kind of handle this as far as like how would you coach Kate Martin right now through her deals?
Yeah, I love that you brought up Kate Martin because it's so crazy how much she got overlooked, but she still got drafted to the WNBA. So
Mhm,
you get drafted to the WNBA, you are one of the best players in the country. That's a hard thing to do, get drafted to the WNBA. So even in your excellence on the court, you're still going to get overlooked, right? So you can still get overlooked. And and you mentioned being a role player, right? You can still be a star role player, right? Every league, every team has role players, and the best teams need the best role players, right? So I think, and I love that Kate Martin has been promoted, and her wittiness and her, her kind of her rookie um, journey was kind of promoted and stuff like that, because we need to see that people can shine in their role and is valued and is important, right? So
mhm,
um yeah, so let's think about it, right? A role player, you're a role player that got drafted to the WNBA, right? So if I'm her, I would, let's start encouraging student athletes, girls who are considered role players or not the star, how to own that. That's a big issue in grassroots.
mhm,
That's a big issue in kids not knowing their place because they're not the star. And it can only be 2 or 3
mhm,
stars on the team. If you got more than 3, you in trouble. But most people, and that's the thing, most athletes are role players, right? So most
yeah.
athletes are role players. Who do they have to look up to? Dennis Rodman. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? Like, and then uh shoot, MJ and Scottie Pippen, right? And Scottie Pippen don't even got the best, you know, reputation as far as being cool. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how can we make
yeah.
being a role player and a good teammate cool? I'm a penetrate that market, because it's not a whole lot of cool star role players that are being promoted in that
Mhm,
say, right? But everybody needs most 80% of athletes are role players. So I'm gonna penetrate that market. I may, talk to some businesses that they value teamwork. They value being there for you, which a lot of service providers do, right? Like, for example, like State Farm, even though State Farm has chosen, star players like Juju and Caitlin Clark, but their motto is like a good neighbor, right? So I would think about
Yeah.
companies that brand themselves as being a good teammate or a good neighbor, whatever the case may be, and I'm saying, hey, you know, I've been promoted and starred and, by being this good teammate, and I have benefited so much by being a good teammate. Like, allegedly, she came to the draft only to support Caitlin Clark, and she got drafted. What if she would have
Mm,
been like, "I ain't going to that draft. They ain't calling my name." You know what I'm saying? Like,
mm,
her name probably would have got called, but she wouldn't have been able to go on stage. You know what I'm saying? So because I wanted to be there, excited for, my teammate, I got to have an experience as a top first rounder. I can't remember what round she got drafted, but I got to get on stage with most people that would have got drafted in my spot wouldn't have gotten on stage or been there in person. You know what I'm saying? Um,
mhm,
and yeah, so like, and then, when she got drafted, the vets embraced her, had a good time. And it's funny the dichotomy how Kate Martin was just having this good old time in the WNBA, like all of her clips and stuff were like happy go lucky and stuff like that. And like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are fighting for their lives in the media, and just it was every week is some BS for them. You know what I'm saying? Like
mm,
stressing themselves out. And Kate Martin just having her the best time in the world. You know what I'm saying? So like stuff like that needs to be promoted more. And and I'm glad that media outlets did promote Kate Martin in that way and show her journey, but like you can monetize that by, you know, speaking or um, coming up with some intellectual property around it or just sharing your story a little bit more, being paid to speak.
mm. I think about Sid Colson a lot too because she is so comfortable in her role. Like I remember, she was on live somewhere and answering questions about her position on the team, something like that, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm starting on the bench." Like she knows that she is a bench player. She's not about to come take over. Like, bro, that's Caitlin Clark, bro. What am I doing? I'm backing her up. I'm cheering her on. If my number's called, I'm ready. But like, she knows who she is. She knows where she is, and she's good with that. And I think like she'd be beautiful for this too, just terms of promoting and marketing, being a role player, starring in your role, and being a good teammate because that ego starts kicking in. That's what destroys a lot of teams. That's what just happened with
Yeah,
Jalen Williams in terms of like, bruh, I'm the right hand man. SGA go kill. Oh, you ain't got it. All right, I step up and do my thing. But they've mastered that to where, from what we've seen, like it's 1 and 2, and he's comfortable being number 2 because he knows what he can do when one's not available. He's the one that had 40 points, and SGA had like 30, 31, something like that. So more players start to hear like it's okay to not be the guy or the girl. I don't have to be number one option, a superstar. I can be a role player, and I can still have my NIL deal. I can still have the championships. I can still have everything I want. Might have the same number of attention and followers as that person, but I can still be great in my role. So I think Kate should talk with you and y'all can figure that out in terms of how to get that going because that'll be fun to see.
yeah. I mean, owning your journey, and the dichotomy with owning your journey is that if you do own your journey, you can have a lot of followers because a lot of people are gonna be able to relate to you. But if you don't penetrate and like own your journey, like I'm that person that does XYZ, nobody's gonna be able to find you, right? Because the stars are gonna be promoted by the media more. You gotta own your journey and promote your journey, and you'll get the follower.
Mm. All right, so let's go back to the stars and let's do Malaysia. I want to say the other one for last because she's the most unicorn of the group. But let's go Malaysia. She's the fireball, the instant starter that was off the bench for South Carolina. So how would you coach Malaysia up in her new situation at LSU?
Yeah, Lay. Um, there's a lot of different ways you can go with this because she has, like I was saying with Paige, like when yes, you got to get better, but as far as where athletes aspire to be like she's her, right? And it seems almost easy to do. Um, I would do a lot of different things with Lay. One, I would get into fashion, right? Because she got that swag. When she get dressed up, typically she looks really nice and seems like she really likes it. So I would kind of get into fashion, be like, okay, what type of blazers for women or um, or that swag with women in suits and things like that. I would see like, how can I be an ambassador for that because of her popularity? Um, you can easily kind of slide in, be an ambassador for another company that promotes suits and looking nice, and not even just casual, or not even just like formal wear, but just shoes and just swag, matching different casual outfits and stuff together. So I would definitely explore the fashion fillet. Um, Another thing I would get into is video games, right? So
Mm.
she was being interviewed and they said, "Yo, where do you learn your moves?" She said, "I learned my moves from 2K." So, if I'm working with her, I'm hitting up some video game companies and be like, okay. And even, you know, good promotion would be like her highlights. Like sometimes her highlights are like you doing some things that you will only see in a video game. She can easily be used to promote um, a video game company or a new game coming out or something like that, or just be an ambassador for the video game industry. Um, she already has a shoe, a basketball shoe that's great, right?
Mhm.
And her, and this is the thing. So she has such a dynamic fan base because even though she's leaving Columbia, she's leaving South Carolina. She's from Columbia, right? So all of those people would have been her fans anyway, right? So she's in a great situation to where she can double up on the fan base. Now, are all South Carolina fans going to be raving for her? No. But the city of Columbia specifically, yes, because she's from that city. No matter what she does, if she go to LSU and wins the national championship, if she would have went to a different school out of high school, that fan base, she still would have had majority of that fan base. Maybe not Gamecock specific fans, but fans of that community, right? So she's somebody that they're still gonna love, right? Just because she's from there, right? That's her hometown. Um, so I would kind of capitalize off that, right? I would have a camp or do some type of appearance and event before I leave home, because essentially she hasn't left home, and she may be at LSU now because you start summer school, stuff like that. But I kind of would have, and right now it can feel kind of like bitter sweet, so who knows emotionally how you would feel about that. But I would bridge that gap, like, yo, y'all still my people, what I'm saying, and would have had an appearance with some type of piggyback off another company, how appear there and get paid for that appearance and bridge that gap. Be like, okay, I may not be a player of South Carolina anymore, but this is y'all are my people, and build and continue to build support that way. Um, she can have camps or a way of play, right? Because she probably been told so many times that you can't be that flashy, right? And then maybe part of I don't know at all, but I watch the games and you see the commentary. You like Don Staley likes disciplined point guards, and maybe Malaysia don't fall in that category, or whatever the case may be, as far as structure and do this when I want you to do it. It's a mental battle when you feel like you can't be yourself, and a lot of athletes go through that. Does my style of play fit what this coach want me to do, right? So I would kind of craft that in a story, like, you are good the way you are, or the way that you aspire to be. Maybe you don't fit the mold, maybe you're different, right? You can be different and still be successful, right? You may have to go to some different places or figure some things out. um, Maybe you got to deal with the heartbreak of leaving your hometown and not playing for Don Staley. But if that's true to who you are and you want to be great in the way that you see yourself as being great, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still was able to play for Don Staley, win a national championship, and I'm gonna still be myself and play the way that I want to play, and it's still part of my journey. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of brand building, which I talk about a lot, is like packaging your story, and that story itself can relate to so many people in different walks of life. Of, I don't fit this narrative, I don't fit this mold. What can I do with it? You know what I'm saying? Um, so yeah, that's what I would do do it a little bit.
Malaysia, that's a powerful one because I think a lot of players can relate to that. Like the fact that a coach has probably told them you can't do this or you can't do that or it's not going to work. Like so many players have heard you can't do this because it's not going to translate to the next level. Tyrese Halliburton was told you got to change your jumper, bro. It's not going to work at the next level. NBA Finals, and there's so many players that relate to being coached out of being themselves. Now they have to wrestle with, well, this is my game. This is how I've played. So how do I want to play. I don't want to be a bad teammate and I want to, thrive and win. But this is the way that I know how to play. So I think her being the face and the spokesperson of that will be powerful too. Because that's a whole different story that's not being told as well. Like you want to be a good teammate so you conform. But how much conforming do I do until I'm not myself anymore? Like you dating this girl, and like, bro, I want to impress her. I want to be with her, but like, she don't like this. She don't like dudes that wear hats. She don't like dudes that have beards. And it's like, bro, how much of me do I have to remove until I'm not me anymore? So in terms of being coached that way, she's probably like one of the best because her and Don was supposed to be a good click, a good pair because Don was a little wild, but the coach is a little bit different. So like, man, we thought it was gonna be a match made in heaven, but she feels like I can't be me. So now she's got to tell that story of like, without tearing Don down, like, how do I tell that story of like what I felt like all these years to now be be the voice in the face for you girls. So guys are going through this too. So that's powerful,
Yeah.
man. Like this is, I really like this.
Yeah, and I love that how you brought up a different example that had nothing to do with basketball, right? So how many people change themselves to be in relationships? How many change themselves for jobs? And that's where the viralness goes, right? And that's why these players got to get
Hmm.
good at telling their stories and figuring out what other categories they fit into, because that is something that a lot of people can relate to, not even players. Like, be yourself. That's probably one of the most things that people struggle with, is how to find themselves. You know how difficult it probably was for her to leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, last time I checked, she was dating somebody that goes to South Carolina on track team. You know what I'm saying? Like, that probably was the hardest thing for her to have to do. Like, it's not gonna be me and Don at the end. Well, they can still at the end of their life, yeah, but like at the end of these 4 years, it ain't me. And like, that's hard. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dang, you think about it. And I've thought about it. I'm like, dang, did she really have to leave? You know what I'm saying? But and me, I'm
Yeah.
like, if I was her, like, it made sense. Like, you, when am I gonna be able to play the way I want to play? You know what I'm saying? And I don't even know if that's what she was thinking, but outside looking in, like, she got more to give. She can be a little bit more
Hmm.
free. She probably want to be a little bit more free. And that's, again, going into different categories. How many people probably struggle with that, with those life decisions, with that dichotomy? I can't be myself. So now I'm not just relatable to another basketball player. I'm relatable to women who struggle to be themselves. I'm relatable to black women who struggle to be themselves. I'm relatable to people that may have a disability that struggle to be themselves, that feel like they gotta fit in. Now I got this infinity of fan base, all because I just told my story. And it's relatable. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you get a million followers right there, when you can relate to so many people. And that's the Angel Reese effect. When Angel Reese
Hmm.
started talking about how she is unapologetically her, I'm a black woman, I'm gonna do things, I'm gonna have the attitude, I'm a dance after the play, and I don't care, I'm going to be me. Her fan base took off, and her brand Infinity took off. She probably got one of the strong, I don't know what other women's basketball player or women athlete has a stronger brand than her. Her name is said so much, and it's because of all of the other categories that she fits into. She relates to so many different people, even if people don't want to admit it, right? Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean, as soon as she start, obviously I think she should be coached on it, very strategic. But as soon as she start telling her story and saying how she feel and stuff like that, like, her brand will grow so much, because people want to know, and people relate to that.
So it kind of sounds like you should have a detailed story to a generic audience, I guess you could say, that can stretch across. So everybody feels like the underdog in there. they should star in a role like Kate. Or everybody has felt like I can't be me, I can't be my natural self. And now, if I'm the voice of that story, if I'm the voice of that message with my detailed story, this is how I can grow.
That's how you build a brand. I wouldn't say to a
Hey,
generic audience though, because the audience is specific, right? But
hmm
it's it's in different categories. It's not just athletes. People can relate.
hmm
People, someone that struggled to be themselves is more than just athletes. So that's a specific avatar, right? And you gotta think, she's also a black woman. She's also a woman. She's a black woman, and she has a girlfriend. Those are three things you come into this world with that puts you back. You're a woman. You're a black woman. You have a girlfriend, and I can't even play for my dream coach because I don't fit. I don't fit. You know how many people struggle with those? Like you got all of these in academics, we call it intersectionality, right? We got all of these things
hmm
that don't make me regular, right? She probably been struggling with herself to her whole life. And I'm not trying to put that on her, but as
yeah,
and it won't be the last time she won't fit the narrative. And she could still be great outside of the narrative, right? So yeah, so just figuring out how our things about you can relate to a bigger group of people. I wouldn't say generic, I would say like a bigger group of people that struggle.
yeah. That's a
Not
better
even
way
that
to put
struggle,
it.
but like help people through their struggle. So the how you build a very strong brand is if you can help somebody through a struggle. If you help
Mm,
somebody through a struggle, you become their hero, right?
mm,
So if any of these athletes right now, if they're just an athlete, they're just entertainers, right?
mm,
When Paige Beckers became an advocate for black women, she became a lot of black women's hero, or she became a lot of people's hero that um advocate for other people. She became a hero. Now everybody rock with Paige, right?
mm,
When Malaysia in this story, if she actually put that out there, she becomes people's hero. Like people can kind of see it, you can speculate, but until she owns that story and says it, or say however she wants to frame it, it doesn't have to be, I could be completely wrong. However she chooses to frame it, or whatever she went through, when she put that out there, what I had to overcome, now I become people's hero because I'm helping them through something, right? And the same thing with um with Rakia Jackson. Like, okay, you're a pretty girl, but like help me get over my confidence issues. Now, not only do I admire Rakia for being a pretty girl and having this confidence and having this presence, now she's my hero because she's helped me overcome my lack of confidence as a black woman.
mm,
So that's a, that's the secret to building a strong brand, is figuring out something about you that a lot of people can relate to, and to become somebody's hero, right? So that's why Caitlin Clark fan base is so crazy, because I'm just gonna be honest, like, and it's like a lot of racist people are fans of Caitlin Clark because she's their hero, because she can go out and dominate black women on the court, and that's what a lot of
mm,
white people want to do. That's like white people's
mm,
dream to do. You know what I'm saying? Subconsciously,
yeah,
consciously, she's their hero. Like she go out and she kill all those black girls on the court. That's why she got all. That's why she has that racist fan base, and it's not like a good thing, right?
mm,
But that's just the development behind her brand, and why it's has all this infinity, and why she has attracted all of these racist people, um because she's a demonstration of what some white people really want to be, and that's
mm,
inferior to black people. And that's what Caitlin Clark, her game, the way she dominates, the way she kills, like, or the way she plays the game and performs, she shows inferiority over black women.
mm,
So it's not a good thing that she's people's hero in that way, but that's
yeah.
She's people's hero. Look at her kill those black people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Man, this feels like
Take
a branding one-on-one session. Almost like a marketing one-on-one. Like this is so much fun, man. Um, all right, with the last player we're gonna get into, I'm really glad we're gonna get into her, because she is the quietest one of everybody. It's gonna be Sarah Strong. Like she doesn't talk. Like I'm pretty sure a lot of people the first time they heard her talk was after they won the championship to interview her. Like I'm pretty sure a lot of people like, oh, she does have a voice. She can speak. Like I'm pretty sure that's a lot of time, like a lot of times people's first time hearing her speak like that. So if you're coaching her, what's your plan?
um, I mean, like you said, like she doesn't talk much, so I would, try and help her find her voice a little bit. Um, I would definitely play on the name strong, right? And I would figure out what is about her DNA, not necessarily physical strength, but what is it about her DNA that makes her strong? And then, I would tell that story, right? I would, she's a post player, she's a big girl, big post presence, right? So I would figure out like what are some things that you had to overcome that helped you become great, and then I would kind of package that into some type of strong brand, right? Even though it may be mental, it may be, um, I would try and stay out of physical, but I would like, okay, what is it? What about you makes you strong, right? And then, I would again come up with her story, her brand package, or whatever the case may be. And then, also I would call brands like what cars pride themselves in having strong tires or being like, trucks. You look at the marketing in trucks, they brand themselves as being strong, right? I would,
Mhm.
I would just look at different companies and products that kind of have um, that want to be like dominant, right? And figure out kind of, how we align with other products. But she has a lot of potential, right? Because she was on that freshman stage and she was a freshman. Some people even say she was the best player in the national championship game. And she led her team as a freshman. Obviously, she got Paige and AZ Fudd on the team as well, but like she was a leader and she performed at a high level. And then also, people also compliment her on her maturity as well, which
Mhm.
is something that a lot of athletes lack, right? Or just as a generation, sometimes maturity isn't popularized, right? So, what made her so mature at such a young age? Let's talk about that. Um, let's use that to help the next generation become more mature, right? So and then,
Mm.
she could kind of be an ambassador for growth, right? Again, also playing on her last name a little bit, right? Being emotionally strong, that plays into maturity as well. And then, obviously, fashion companies, stuff like that. So many people that are bigger struggle with finding clothes that fit them, right? That's a big problem. So I will see like what type of fashion or clothing companies can I partner with to help women, find the stuff that they need if they're bigger.
Mm. I think you could play on that quiet strength because she's of course physically dominant, but like you said, the mindset she has and to be able to be that mature at that young, and she doesn't talk a lot, not publicly. You could play on that too. I just want to get my 2 cents on this in case she takes it. So like I can take like 2% on the deal too. That's all.
Yeah.
So uh
Question, what does that
but nah,
mean?
that's good.
Right? We gotta define it. We gotta talk about it. We gotta what is it? What does quiet strength mean for Sarah Strong? You know what I'm saying? Like we gotta define it and package it.
Mm. Man, we could probably go on for like another hour just breaking down players and hearing you do this. But I know you got more coaching to do. You got more books to sell. Like you busy. So um anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
No, I mean, shout out to you. I mean, the way you formatted the questions and kind of wanting to go through every player and stuff like that. That was very thoughtful. From your end and wanting to get the most out of this conversation. So shout out to you for putting this together. And this that was it was a challenge for me when I first seen it. I hit you back like, yo, we talk about all these people. I was like, yo, but then I was like, once I started thinking about, it, I was like, yeah, that'll be a fun conversation, and it's something that I haven't really done publicly as far as breaking down people. So shout out to you for being thoughtful in your approach to this conversation.
And I appreciate you agreeing to do it because you could have been like, nah, I don't want to give the game away and give that much. And I would respect it, like, all right, you got business to run. I ain't trying to take no bread out of your plate. But for you doing this, I'm pretty sure it helped a lot of people because I know even speaking about this, some players listening to this and it's like, okay, I can relate to Kate, I can relate to Sarah, I can relate to this, and where either from the first half you giving a breakdown of how to get the deal, combined with the second half of how you would coach this player, I don't see how a player can't get an NIL deal by the end of this because you broke down the star player to a role player. You broke down the extrovert and introvert, and you gave the blueprint of how to get the deal done. So for you taking time out to do this and then agreeing to do it, the format I gave, like I appreciate you doing that. So a lot of value you gave, man. I hope that you get the return on it, man. Because this was good. Like I'm telling you, man. It's so much more I wanted to ask, but just out of time and just feeling like I don't want to overdo it. So
Yeah, well, maybe we
um,
can do a part two at some
yeah,
point
because I
later
was gonna be
on.
selfish and ask a couple questions, but we're gonna do that for part two. We're gonna do that for part two. But no, I appreciate you. If people want to contact you, like, man, I love this interview from her. I love all the games she did, but I want her to coach me. How they get to you to be their coach?
They can go to majornilsuccess.com, and when you go to that website, you can sign up to get, workshops, webinars, some free. And then also I have a boot camp that if you want to go deeper and have different experts kind of explain like the law behind it or the financial advice behind it. I have a boot camp that you can purchase. Is on that website as well. Also have a parent group, free parent group where I update periodically with different information and things like that. So majornilsuccess.com will get you everything you need as far as, being on the email list and getting updates and things like that. But definitely follow my social media, and that's why I give updates and stuff as well.
In the book.
And a book that's also on my website, majornilsuccess.com. Yeah, majornilsuccess.com. You can get the book is all on that site.
Well, all right. Hopefully you get a couple clients, or at least something out of this. You didn't give almost 2 hours of your time, so I really appreciate that, man. Man, this was fun, bro. Like I'm a nerd for this stuff too, so that's why I can like just hear this and I'm like, bro, this is so insightful. I can talk business stuff and just ideas like this for hours, as you can tell. So this is definitely fun to hear, and I can tell you got a lot more you can get into. You kind of like held back a little bit, so I appreciate that. But now this was fun, man. I appreciate you. Um,
Absolutely.
but let's get out of here. Let's get out
I
of here. This was
appreciate you
good.
having me. And yeah, shout out to all the student athletes out there that are going to take this information and use it to build their brand.
I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate everybody for watching, listening, and see y'all next episode.